Welcome to my introduction to Unreal Engine. This introduction is mostly aimed at people who are brand new to Unreal Engine, so if you have some experience with the engine, this is not an advanced guide, this is a beginner's guide. The overall goal for teaching Unreal Engine on this channel will be for artists and for implementing, importing models, assets, adding materials, doing landscape and environmental work. But there will be some blueprint tutorials as well and some general materials and node tutorials. So when you first start Unreal Engine, you'll be taken to this screen. Now, if you are not working on a game and you want to use Unreal for something else, these settings exist. But for now, we will start with a blank project. The difference between Blueprint and C++ is that Blueprint uses blueprints instead of actual code for your functionality for gameplay mechanics. And obviously for the target platform, we want to go to desktop because we're not working for phone development. For the preset quality, you can set it to maximum, and we can include starter content. Ray tracing you can enable if you want to, but it will decrease your performance. Just be mindful of that. It doesn't really matter what you name the project in this case. We'll just call this intro and then hit create. So once Unreal Engine is opened, you should see this type of scene. Your sky shouldn't be purple. I don't know why mine is. I might have modified an existing material that made it purple. It should just be a blue sky. But ignoring that, to navigate in Unreal, you can actually right click on the viewport and you can look around. So this is really useful for navigation. You can also use WASD. So W is forward, S is back, A and D move left and right. So you can like look around, fly around the environment. So if you want to check something out or move something, you can do that. You can adjust the camera speed by clicking up here. So if we want to decrease the camera speed, we're now moving much slower, so we have more control. And if you want to actually edit an object, there are 3 different modes. So W allows you to move objects up and down and side to side, back and forth, and so on. E allows you to rotate. So you can see here we can now rotate this object. You can always hit Control Z to undo something. And then R allows you to scale. So now this object is massive. And then another cool thing you can do is when you hit W to bring up moving the object, if you hold Alt, click and drag, you can duplicate an object. So it's pretty useful. And then you can make changes to the duplicated object. So there you go. So there's like a second one. Right now there's snapping. So you might notice we're moving in increments. Now you might want this enabled, you might not. So to enable or disable snapping, you can actually click on each one of these individual settings. So right here, I clicked enable or disable snapping to the grid. So now it's very dynamic. It's more refined. It's less rigid. Same thing for rotation. So right now it's rotating in 10-degree increments. You can turn that off and rotate it in any amount. And you can also change the amount it snaps. So for example, we can set this to 50 and then hit W. And then if we move, the snapping increments are 50 now. And if we want to make it more refined, we could do 5. So you can choose the number of steps. Another thing to take note of is this up here. So you have select Shift +1, which is this mode where you can select objects and hit W, E, and R to scale, rotate, and translate them. Then you have landscape mode, which requires creating a landscape before you can edit this landscape. So right now it's trying to get me to create a landscape. That's how you do that. You have the foliage mode, which allows you to paint and add foliage. You have mesh painting, which is used to actually paint on a mesh. This is pretty sophisticated and requires some setup, but it is here. You also have modeling and some other settings that are probably beyond the scope of this video, but just know that they're there. So we'll just go back to select. So if you wanted to place a basic actor, you can go to this Place Actors tab. There's different things you can place. You can go to each category. So for example, if you want to place a point light, you can just drag that in. You have a few different lights in your scene. If you wanted to add some basic objects, like some primitives, like a cylinder, a cube, cone, and so on, you can do that here. And then these objects will appear in the outliner, and you can toggle their visibility as well as delete them or organize them. So one thing that's really useful to do is you can create a folder. So let's collapse some of these. So all these folders are open, so it's kind of hard to tell what we're doing. So we created this new folder, and what we can do, you can click and then click again. So you click it once, then click it a second time slowly to rename it. So we can just call this props, and then we can start organizing our content. And this is really useful for when you're building levels, because you could see how things scale out of control pretty quickly as you start adding things. So you want to be able to add things to folders and, you know, collapse them. You can also toggle them off. So if you wanted to see what something looks like with certain like objects in there, you can toggle the effect off. So if we wanted to make a folder for lighting, we could do that as well. There actually is a lighting folder already, so we can drag these lights into there. And if we turn it off, you can see what that does. So very useful. There's other primitives as well. There's cinematic. This is mostly for the camera. There's visual effects. There's a little bit more to this than like I can go over in the scope of this video, but post-process volume allows you to add some pretty cool effects in your shaders. There's geometry, which is very similar to the primitives, except that one of them can have a texture added, I believe. Or actually, no, this one's more controllable. Like you can see it has like a pattern. So this one has more control. The other ones, they're both basically primitives, but this one has stairs as well. So there's like some differences between them. They're both usually used for like building levels quickly, for like concepting. Then you have volumes. Then of course, if you go to all classes, you can see every single class you can place over here. All right, so that's placing actors. Then we have the content drawer. So the content drawer is where you import things and where you organize your project. So you can right click, you can add new folders. You can add content to these folders, you can organize them. You can also recolor the folders. So you can like right click the folder, set color. And, oh, okay, here it is. Popped up on my other screen. So we can set the color to something different, which is really nice because then you can visually see the difference. So like if you don't even have to read it, you just have to look for the color. So if every one of your projects, pink is your animations folder, then you just know just to click on the pink folder. And then of course, you can always rename it. Right click, rename. So let's say that is the animations folder. And the other thing to keep in mind with Unreal is that everything is based around objects for the most part. So if you have, let's say this cone is like a character, like a playable character, you can attach functionality to it and you can set up things in blueprints so that those blueprints affect this cone. So you could add like inputs and move it around, for example, and that's done in the blueprint system. So like, let's say we want to add a new blueprint, you can right click in your content browser, add a new blueprint class, and then you can select which type of blueprint you want to add. So you can see the descriptions here. Actor, and actor is an object that can be placed or spawn in the world. So that's like a prop. Pawn is an actor that can be controlled. So for example, if we wanted to create a pawn class and call this player, whoops, I don't know why it did that. All right, player movement. And then we added this to this cone and set this up to accept inputs for movements, we could move the cone around. So that's like the basic overview for navigation, the different types of objects, some basic things like setting up lighting, organizing in your outliner, under select mode, changing your scale, rotate, and translate settings, as well as rotating, translating, and so on, and scaling. Now you can scale, you don't have to scale uniformly. So if you click on the middle box, it'll scale in every direction. You can scale, so in this case, I'm just scaling across one dimension. And now I've created like a kind of couch thing out of this model. It's not the most refined result, but it basically kind of looks like a couch now. So you can scale and rotate and translate non-uniformly, but if you want to make it uniform, you just click in the middle, as you can see here. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the introduction to Unreal Engine. This is more geared towards artists, and I think that those are the basics that you should know for now, and then we'll get into more advanced stuff like setting up materials, animations, and things like that. If you have animations for a character, importing different types of models, so on and so forth. So yeah, that's it for this one. Definitely like and subscribe if you enjoyed this or found this useful. Drop a comment, let me know what you think, and also feel free to suggest new content to make, and I'll see you in the next one.